Hey everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations. You're with Simon today, and I'm going to be speaking about the Pluto and Libra generation in this video. I recently did a video on the Pluto in Scorpio generation, and it seemed to be something that was an incredibly important video to create. I carry these things with inside of me all the time, where I'm like incredibly interested in dissecting the nature of generations and looking for ways to help and facilitate and create awareness regarding the different struggles that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis regarding the generation that we were born in. And I've been incredibly hesitant to just speak about them in ways because I don't really want to create this kind of generic conversation that we generally tend to find on the internet regarding generations. So the Pluto and Scorpio generation in itself was something that really came from the bottom of my heart. And I felt that it's now time to be able to speak to the other generations as well. You all have a very special place in my heart as well, including my own generation, which is the Pluto and Libra. In fact, I have the cusp between Scorpio and Libra anyway, if that has anything to do with the nature of consciousness in itself. It pretty much feels like it's a Pluto and Libra only for me. But anyway, so today I'm going to be discussing Pluto and Libra generation, and this will be specific for you guys that are born between 1972 and 1983 in the tail end. So November is when I noticed that Pluto went into Scorpio, 1983 in November. It could have possibly retrograded, but I don't think so. A lot of internet says that it's 1984. Anyway, so what are we dealing with here when we're looking at the Pluto and Libra generation? Okay, I think it's really, really important to understand the core archetypal dynamic that Libra represents to really, really get a grasp on your soul's evolution. So if we're looking at a Libra generation soul, the incarnation has to do with your whole entire generation wanting to learn those lessons. So there is a collective lesson that is being learned by you incarnating at that period of time. Does that make sense? Okay. So for me, I would naturally associate with a vast majority of Pluto and Libra generation souls when I was growing up, because that would be the time frame I'd be existing in. There would be similarities that we would all be learning. So that's the first thing, is to validate the lesson or the theme that you're coming to incarnate through and emotionally master, and so on and so forth. So Libra in itself reflects the nature of balance, okay? And that's a very generic term when it comes to understanding Libra in itself. But what does it actually contain? Well, in essence, you will notice in your life that you struggle with polarity and extremes, okay? And the extremes and polarity are the actual reflection of how much of that balancing act you've actually managed to manifest within your life, okay? So if you observe your life very, very sensitively, you'll notice that a lot of your behavior patterns polarize themselves all the time and operate in extremes. And you'll notice as you get older, you'll have to learn how to kind of bring that back into the centeredness over there. Okay. So this is this major overarching theme. I notice with myself, and believe it or not, a lot of the time I spend in deep inner reflection. And then when I'm communicating, I tend to be in the direct polarity to that inner reflection. So there's this sense of quietness and presence that I hold, but then I will be able to communicate an incredible amount. So if you only saw me communicating, you'd actually see, oh, this guy just, talks all the time. Whereas in actual fact, I spend a lot of my time in the polarity. And if you had seen me in that polarity, you'd be like, wow, why do you, how do you communicate, or why do you communicate so much? And yet at the same time, I've seen you only being incredibly quiet. So there is an extreme that I have within my consciousness regarding communication. And of course I have Mercury in Libra, and I also have Pluto in Libra as well, okay, at 29 degrees. So that's this dynamic that this archetype carries with it. So you are looking to understand this within yourself. The next thing that I feel is important for you to objectify is to understand that you're evolving through what is fair, what is social justice, what is the nature of equality, and how to be in a relationship, okay? So that would be the next layer that would come out of this experience. So there's this dynamic of I'm learning to be in a relationship, And yet there's this deep underlying feeling like I can only be complete if I am in a relationship. Therefore, I must be needed, or I need to be needed. Okay. And this is an incredibly deep issue that exists with the Pluto Libra generation souls. And again, I'm going to go into the tail end of this over here and explain to you how early life environments and family dynamics have caused those things. But these are the lessons that or themes you're trying to recognize within yourself, this need to be needed. So what manifests here, and this comes because of the fact that when we are needing to be needed, there's an essence of what is my identity and how do I understand myself in relationship to other people. So I generally tend to, not me personally, but the Pluto and Libra generation, but me, will lose themselves in relationships because the self-identity becomes merged with the other identity. And so therefore there's this kind of codependency that manifests itself. And yet it's that very balancing act that you're actually trying to understand within yourself regarding how to be in a relationship to fulfill that need to want to be in a relationship or need to be needed, and also to individuate yourself. Okay, so the polarity point of Aries, of Pluto in Libra is Aries. So you are looking to individuate yourself. That's instinctual new direction. And what's challenging for us is, how do I live a life where I'm in a relationship and yet still can follow my own destiny, make my own choices, be independent, and feel okay to be alone? That's key. How can I feel okay being alone? And that, you'll notice, is incredibly uncomfortable sometimes, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm alone. What do I do with my time? Kind of thing. And you'll notice that those are the kind of things that you'll have to go through, these cycles of being alone and then wanting to be in a relationship, and then in a relationship and then wanting to be alone. And it's this emotional paradox that we carry with us. Okay. The other thing, like I said, again, with regards to the balance in society is that if you observe the nature of the times right now, most of you are between the ages of 32 and 41, 42, 43, around about that area. Okay. 42 maybe. And or 42, 43, and 32 in that grade. Now, the point is that period of time in life is actually about deep inner reflection and karmic understanding, and also family. So most of you will be in a situation where you've had children already and then have actually divorced or split up from your partner and live two separate lives, where on one hand, you've got a child and you're living with them, and then the dad's somewhere, or he's not, depending on where it is. And you guys are having to consistently keep on sending the child there and then sending the child there and then sending the child there. And what you're having to do is mediate and have to communicate between each other regarding the management of the child. Now, how that works out is completely dependent on your karma, but essentially there's going to be this, I'm alone and I'm having to, in some way, shape or form, actually manifest my life along with this child that I had from the marriage that's now dissolved. And then I'm having to trade consistently all the time. So 1 week I'm alone, 1 week I'm with children, and a reminder of my relationship. 1 week I'm alone. And it's fascinating how that works, because it is actually the dynamic that you guys have come to learn. And the reason why that split would have taken place is because of this. If you go back to your early life environment, firstly, most of you, okay, would have had Pluto in Leo generation parents, meaning that most of you have, unfortunately, and again, this is no non-credits to the Pluto and Leo generation, because I know I've met many of you. You are incredibly loving souls, and you are wonderful to understand and be around. But you do carry with yourselves wounding regarding narcissism, and there are some incredibly unconscious Pluto and Leo generation souls that gave birth to the Pluto and Libras, where the Pluto and Libras needed to be needed, and the Pluto and Leos needed to feel love. And so therefore this kind of this relationship dynamic where the Pluto and Leos have actually created their children as an extension of themselves, and then demanded of their children to be an extension of themselves, and creating this dynamic where if you don't love me, Pluto and Leo generation soul parents, then you're not worth it. You're not worth my love. And here comes this core wound that exists with the Pluto and Libra generation, that manifests the codependency, that manifests the desire to not want to be out of love, or to feel like you're not important. And that is that there's this core wound of self-love. that exists within your psyche. And you would have noticed that as you were growing up, the only way to get love is when you did things for other people, creating the psychology that by being of service to other people in some way, shape, or form and denying your own sense of individuated direction, you then were completely and utterly linked to self-worth in of service to other people. I can facilitate your needs. I can be there for you. I've got your needs. I'm okay. I can facilitate all of that stuff. And then getting to this point in your life and noticing that you've got this interesting dynamic where you wake up, you understand spiritual things, you want to credibly self-actualize, and yet you've got this karma with you regarding having to facilitate other people's needs, and also growing up in a life where your needs were not helped with. In other words, you were a parent to your parents growing up, and still maybe are to a certain degree, and then you are now parents to children, and you sit in the middle going, Jesus, I have these responsibilities and social expectations on both sides, and there's no time for me. And again, it reflects the need to actually break free and liberate from the karmic dynamics associated with feeling the need to be needed in order to get love. And it's really, 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 really deep within the psyche over there that plays this incredible karmic card. So as we become more awakened to our journey, you will start to notice that the story that you have here is to create instinctual change. Pluto and Libra generation, cardinal sign, instinctual change. In other words, in this lifetime, you will recognize that you are progressively becoming and shifting the direction of humanity through all of the distortions that have been contained within your emotional memories regarding the past, and that no longer working for you anymore, and then having to work through the dynamics that are present with you that are leading you in a new direction, i.e. Aries, instinctual change. So in my case, for instance, both myself and my partner have got Pluto Libra generation soul things, and we are creating instinctual change in our lives by raising children at this stage that have a very different karmic dynamic towards what we had when we were growing up. Now that to a certain degree is a kind of generalization for every parent that works with their children. They want to say, I don't want to project it onto them. But for us particularly, what you're looking at is not of the emotional repression, hearing what the other person actually has to say and hearing their own emotions and allowing them to have the freedom necessary as a child to not need to be loved if they can do something for you, but just to love them unconditionally anyway, and to give them that necessary ability to feel that you can be the parent to them, and that they are not looking up to you saying, I need to be the parent to you because you don't seem to know what's going on. And that's what this core wound is that you guys carry, and what we carry with us is we look to our parents saying, you're supposed to guide us and help us along this road, and yet I'm the one that has to, for some random reason, figure it out for myself. And so you grow up too fast. There are many, many dynamics that take place. And of course, this doesn't apply to every single Pluto and Libra generation soul, but the majority of us do carry this core wounding with us. So finally, what I want to say is that the creative self-actualization is realizing within yourself that there is an instinctual change that is taking place. And emotional transmutation comes to recognizing that as you begin to progressively make new changes in your life that give yourself the freedom to actualize yourself, to find new independent ways to be your own and not have to parent other people and take on that responsibility, then you will start to feel the freedom that is needed in yourself. The last thing that I wanted to say was having to process the emotional rage and anger that is within inside of yourself. And a lot of that coming through projection. So when you were growing up, mom and pop had social expectations that they lived through. Mom lived over here, dad lived over here. And in the Pluto and Scorpio generation, the next thing was to abandon and actually go away completely. Whereas in the Pluto Libra generation, obviously before it, mom and dad were going, this is the social rules, dad does that, mom does that. And you are in the relationship because society says you should be, and you go through all these trials and tribulations, but nobody opens up and speaks up. Nobody emotionally validates themselves. Nobody says that there's anything that is not right for me, and nobody creatively self-actualizes. So as a child, you grow up with this feeling of emotional tension and emotional animosity that the two parents carry that then assimilates into yourself, and you think it's you. Whereas actually it was the two polarities with mom and pop, because mom and pop were completely polarized because they were suffocating each other. So in the Pluto and Scorpio generation, that suffocation came to fruition, and that's when the split happened. But for you guys and for us, it was growing up where they were separated like that, but yet still together. So again, no emotional upheaval. So you're learning how to get rid of that stuff and realize that it's not you, and get rid of the guilt and the feelings of you know, it's your fault and so on and so forth. Okay. All right, guys, fantastic. I really hope that you enjoyed that video and it gave you some emotional healing regarding your life and stuff. Please write in the comments below if you felt that that was something that was validated. And yeah, have a fantastic week, and I'll take you in. Bye.